what are some signs? So she talked about not sleeping, right? That's a huge sign, right? So the
Yeah.
restlessness is what I like to call it. Like the fatigue and restlessness, because there's this mixture of being tired but not being able to sleep, right? So you're so exhausted, but then you still really aren't able to sleep, or you're sleeping too much, right? And so it's to the point where the fatigue or this restlessness have gotten you so exhausted that all you want to do is sleep, right? And then there's also the chronic or the cognitive thoughts that are running through your head that also leads you to thinking, I would rather be asleep than to even deal with all these thoughts and worries and different things that I'm telling myself. And so that restlessness and fatigue can be a mixture of both physical and cognitive responses to depression, right? And so recognizing that your sleep pattern is off if you're sleeping too much or you're not sleeping enough. And then what's the reason for that? Is it because I'm not thinking well about myself? I'm constantly reliving or revisiting thoughts all throughout the day that I've experienced, and kind of thinking of fatigue almost like exhaustion, even when you can't sleep, right? Because there's many times where it's like, oh, I'm really tired, so then I go to sleep and I'm fine after I wake up. But then there's other times when you're so exhausted that even after you sleep, it just feels like there was no rest or nothing that you did to sleep, right? Then there's like this loss of energy or reduction in energy. So if you know that normally you're a high energetic person, and then all of a sudden you find yourself having these major dips in your energy level, like dips where it feels like it's literally nothing you can do to get yourself up, right? And part of that is because we're going to go to the next symptom, which is part of it is because your sadness or your ongoing thoughts of like hopelessness and helplessness are so overwhelming that you physically can't even move yourself to do anything. Now, that doesn't mean we can't fake it through, right? Because then we have these bursts of trying to present well in front of others so that they can't tell that you're restless or hurt. Like, and so then it kind of gives you this false illusion that you're doing well. When in reality, if you are so exhausted that you have to literally kind of give yourself a burst to get to look average or to look like you're doing just well, then that's a sign that you really have lost the energy and the motivation to even keep the energy, right? Because then one of the things that happens, and this is another sign, is that you start to isolate. Because then it's like, okay, what it's costing me to even pretend to be energetic, okay, not sad, is so exhausting that I don't even want to do that. And so then I isolate from even people so that I don't have to do those engagements that might be costing me because I'm not dealing with the actual underlying issue or underlying thoughts and things that I'm thinking. And usually when we think about our thoughts in this area of like depression, it's usually really like hopelessness or helplessness, where it's like, I'm never going to do this. I'm not enough. I don't know if my life is ever going to be okay. All of my relationships are my fault. So you're always like you're identifying yourself as the problem in the world and everything that's going on. And or you're looking at there's no hope in the world. Right? So that helplessness one is really, and hopelessness could be a mixture of identifying yourself as the problem and or feeling hopeless that the world has nothing to offer you and or change anything. Right? I'm trying to catch them all without. So then we did sadness in our thoughts, feelings, right? So feelings are going to be the hopelessness ones. I'm trying to make sure I'm catching everything. I'm missing something.
You talked about
Concentrate.
the isolation from friends and family.
Okay, yeah, isolation. Also, for those of us who are normally productive or work often, what you'll also find is that you can't concentrate, right? So you have a hard time like doing things like making decisions, having a structured conversation, right? So sometimes it's like you're in the beginning of a conversation and it's going smoothly, and then all of a sudden you forgot what you're talking about. All of a sudden you can't remember your last thought that you were trying to, or point that you were trying to get out, because now it's even and almost like your brain is fatigued, right? So now it's like I can't concentrate, I can't focus, I can't think. So now I'm going to even more so isolate or move away from others as well, right? Because it gives me this fear that people could see something's wrong with me And I don't want people to think there's something wrong with me. And then you said it earlier by just giving your example or your own experience, was that you kind of really start looking at, am I going to hurt myself? Or do I think that I'm not worthy or able to be here because I'm not worth being here? Right. So one of the things I think people think is that when you're suicidal, you're thinking, today I want to kill myself only. Right. But what happens is that when we talk about the different elements of suicidal thoughts and ideology, really it comes down to doom and gloom. I'm going to use that example where it's like you start thinking negatively about everything. And then that also starts to include yourself, right? So it's like, I'm not capable of doing it. But then it goes from I'm not capable to I don't even think I should be doing it. I know that I shouldn't be here, right? So the negative thoughts may start off as what seems like could be in your control, quote unquote. But then what they start to do is escalate to what can be more gloom and now doom, right? So it's now you're moving from this gloomy thought to this doom of I don't want to be here. I don't think I'm worthy of being here. No one would miss me if I was here. What's the point of all this? You know, and especially when we start thinking about hopeless thinking and hopeless thoughts, we start to really start adding up that it's not worth being here.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we put in place plans. And that's where we start to get in danger because when a person mind gets onto a plan, it also becomes a solution to end all of those symptoms that we just talked about. I won't be fatigued anymore. I won't be not able to sleep. I won't have this lack of success in areas or concentration or places that I have pleasure in. I won't have any of those things. And then now I have this ultimate solution of taking my life, right? And so it starts to escalate. And which is why I think when people hear low grade depression, it's like, well, that's not as serious as chronic or major, right? But they can all be dangerous because they can lead to the same thought pattern or belief. Mm-hmm. And especially when we think we have it under control with low grade, it's like, well, I'm only depressed and sad today, but you don't know how quickly it can go from that one area to all the areas of your life. And so you just have to really be mindful that those signs that we just listed are symptoms, because they depend on which one, how you look at it, what you see versus what you do. That's how you distinguish between a sign and a symptom anyway. But if you look at them, then you can say to yourself, let me do a little checklist for myself. Am I feeling exhausted? Is it just because I worked today too much? But am I feeling exhausted because I don't even want to think about my day? I don't want to go through my day and look at my life anymore. What are the reasonings that's causing me to feel this way? And so then you can create that checklist, because the goal is to make sure that you get the support you need to make sure that you're here.